Happy Tuesday. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of TheNexGen Live. I'm Rory Sauter. Joining me is Greg Merk, Jim Ostrowski, Matthew J., and Tony Rodriguez. Gentlemen, how are we all doing? It's obviously the darkest day in our nation's history, so I can imagine we're probably not doing too well. But it's also the day that Trump is guaranteed a 2024 victory. So I'm feeling pretty good, but I'm also feeling pretty bad that they went to this low of a level after going after an innocent president. Jim, I'm going to start with you. You're a lawyer.
I'm allegedly a lawyer. I got to pay my registration fee, though. Don't tell anybody. Mario Cuomo passed this new tax on lawyers. It's like he thinks we're made of money. So the indictment is bullshit because, as many people have pointed out, it doesn't point out, make this from a misdemeanor to a felony, which they need to do to get around the statute of limitations, which is 2 years for a misdemeanor, 5 years for a felony. They have to allege that he was making a false business entry to cover up another crime, but they don't list the crime. And Bragg, who I don't think is a very good lawyer, he says he doesn't have to. But if you look at the criminal procedure law, and we don't look at indictments very closely, but under criminal procedure law 200.50, if anybody's following at home, the indictment has to be a plain and concise factual statement in each count, which asserts facts supporting every element of the offense charged and the defendants or defendants commission thereof with sufficient precision to clearly apprise the defendant or the defendants of the conduct which is the subject of the accusation. So Trump's lawyers are completely in the dark as to what he's been charged with. I have a theory about this, which is that I don't think Bragg can possibly be that dumb, or his assistants can be that dumb. This forces Trump's attorneys to make a demand for a bill of particulars, and then that delays. They could stall that. That delays the time to make a motion to dismiss. So that's my theory, that this whole thing is bogus and it's just designed to get a photo op. They have, how many people did you hear say this reminds me of the O.J. Simpson car ride? I heard that on MSNBC, and I think I heard it on another network, which is absolutely incredible because not only did O.J. slice up two people, he was running away from the law at the time, and Trump was voluntarily flying into New York with a governor of his state saying he wouldn't extradite him. So it seems like bullshit. There's several other problems. Somebody pointed out that he was probably in Washington when all this happened. So there may be a jurisdictional problem there. I don't think that's the worst thing you could say about the indictment, but the law does require that the indictment say which county the act took place in. I don't think Trump was in New York County, Manhattan, in February, March, April, when all these things, this was 2017. But I want to make a larger point, and then I can't stay too long because I'm actually on a legal deadline, and I'll let the panel chime in. I think you have to go back to the source of all this, which is that they rummaged through all of Trump's records. Somebody wrote a book, some lawyer, 8 felonies a day, 7 felonies a day. The typical American who's involved in a business is probably committing numerous felonies a day without even knowing it. There's so many laws on the books. My buddy Dave Mangiello and I want to go into UB Law School and just film the row after row of books, and they won't let us in because they know what we're up to. And just the notion that we're supposed to know all the laws on the books, or even if we read them all, what they mean, because then there's several dozen rows of court cases which you have to read, some of which are 50 pages long, to figure it out. But the point is that in order to get to this point, they had to rummage through every record of Trump in history. He's the most investigated man in human history in real time. In real time, he's being investigated. And so far, this is all they have. So I believe that the targeting of Trump, which is illegal, I think it's illegal under uh, federal civil law, 42 U.S.C. 1983. It's a violation of his constitutional rights, particularly the First Amendment and equal protection. It's also criminal because every constitutional violation is a crime under 18 U.S.C. 241, 242. If I was Trump, I would have filed a federal lawsuit for an injunction. Now, his lawyers might have told him, well, there's the younger abstention doctrine. Basically, federal courts won't interfere with the state prosecution. But that's the general rule. And if this isn't the exception, I don't know what is. I would also have walked into the FBI with my lawyers and filed a criminal complaint against Bragg. And so those are basically my thoughts. I haven't done a deep dive. I'm sure there's many other flaws. There seems to be incorporating a federal election law violation, and New York State doesn't have the jurisdiction to charge that. It's been rejected by the FEC. There's all sorts of equal protection arguments. We know that Hillary and Obama and Clinton committed all sorts of other crimes. I actually think that's a bit of a weak point to make, but it's a valid point. But it implies that, well, yeah, Trump should have been and should be charged, but we got to get these other people too. So I think that's a little weak. But those are my basic thoughts, after just a couple of hours of being able to look at this.
Merk, I want you to respond.
Well, I think the real charge, the real felony that Donald Trump's committed is he's an ugly American. He's a despicable, deplorable. He's an ogre. That, according to the radical left, the progressives, and frankly, many rhinos in America. And that is apparently a felony in the state of New York, although it's not codified in any of their penal codes. And apparently there's no statute of limitations of being a deplorable, an ogre, an ugly American. They hate Donald Trump. They despise his very appearance, and people keep asking, why do they keep doing this? They make it more and more popular. It's just like their radical leftist social programs. They always they fail every time, and their excuse is, we just didn't spend enough money, and they go back to it, and they try the same old things time and time again, and they fail, and they think they need more money. Same thing with Donald Trump. They go after the first time it failed, the second, the third. They just think we got him this time. We finally got him. When you're motivated by hate, and I say this every time, you are irrational. You cannot be rational when you're motivated by hate. So they're going to keep going after Donald Trump until they can finally win, or they're completely exhausted, diminished, and out. Their tank is completely out of gas. And that may very well come in 2024 when he's back in the White House and smashes all their dreams and sends them all to the nut house.
Good. It's very well true. It's, well said. Matthew.
Well, just a couple observations, starting in New York with Harvard grad D.A. Bragg. He just spelled it out that this is political persecution, saying, hey, why don't we start the trial it said in 2024. Now, as far as Trump's response tonight, it's great. He came out swinging. He laid it all out that the persecution has been going on since 2015. He's going to stand strong. The American people, most of the American people, I would believe, that are sane are behind him. And just we're in a very dark period of American history. And you have to keep in mind too, Rory, that after this trial, or along this trial, he's got the document trial when they raided his house a couple months ago. They got the thing going on in Georgia with the phone call. And of course, you've got the J6 insurrection. So they essentially want him in court every day and keep him off the campaign trail. So this is a well-orchestrated event by the Democrats, and Dumbo Joe Biden all but acknowledged this is part of the plan. This is disturbing if you're an American and you embrace the Constitution. It's all out the window. It's Marxism 101. And I'm fed up, sick of watching what I saw today.
Yeah, Tony.
Well, like I agree with everybody. I mean, they've been trying to get him since the beginning, since 2015 or 16. And this is the best they can do. It's ridiculous. The good thing is they didn't put a gag order on him yet. So it gives him the ability to continue to speak like he did tonight. Well spoken. He didn't come across as a crazy psycho, vindictive person. He came across with facts, which I enjoyed watching. The next thing is, are they going to prolong this so that they can use it during the campaign? I think it would be a mistake on the Democratic side or the left to do that. But I think he's probably not going to end up going to trial over this, but they're going to go after him in Georgia. I'm pretty sure of that. And I'm sure the DOJ is going to go after him after that too. So let's hope and pray that they don't. And hopefully the American people will continue to do like we did in California this weekend. We had a few protests, one in Huntington Beach, one in LA, pro-Trump support. So let's hope it continues.
Yeah. I mean, these people are relentless. These people are as evil as they get. They will stop at nothing. Greg, you know the deal. I mean, these people will go on every single fishing expedition and witch hunt known to mankind until something sticks.
And it's indicative of their fear of Donald Trump and really their loathing for Donald Trump. And I say it goes all the way back to when he defeated Hillary Clinton. It really sent them in a tailspin because and I've said this many times, they actively propped Donald Trump up, gave him probably in the range of $1 billion worth of free campaign advertisements through giving him media access, constant 24/7 media access. They were salivating at the idea that Donald Trump could be the nominee so that Hillary Clinton could mop the floor with him. When that finally happened and Hillary was defeated, their entire dreams and their fantasy came crashing down. And ever since then, they've been hell-bent on destroying Donald Trump and preventing him from ever getting back into Washington. They were successful in 2020. All the things that they pulled from the ballot harvesting, suppression of information, collusion, FBI with the social media. They were successful, and they're hell-bent on preventing him from getting back to Pennsylvania Avenue again. And, time is going to tell whether or not they're successful.
I have a question from the panel.
Yeah.
How do you think this is going to affect them in the general election if it drags on through then? Because we know he's going to win the Republican nomination.
And we saw today they don't want to have another hearing until December, which is 7 months away, which is very odd. And then apparently a lot of stuff will start in January of 2024 for the court and for the hearings and stuff. And that's when like the primary season is like in its big time focus. That's like the time, when everybody's doing all their shit for the primaries.
That is really strange, the December date, because usually the judges like to move cases along. There are speedy trial rules. There's now mandatory discovery in New York, which is actually a bit of a pain in the ass, but it does force the prosecutor to disclose everything he has relatively quickly. But just to finish the thought I had before, I would, if I was Trump's lawyers, I would make a motion to dismiss the indictment just as defective on its face as a matter of form. It doesn't have enough information, but they cannot. I suspect that Trump's lawyers will make a motion, some sort of motion against the indictment very quickly. So you'll have action before December, I guarantee you.
Jim, if Trump's people want to change a venue, it doesn't necessarily have to be like Bronx or Staten Island. It can be anywhere in the state of New York.
Well, these motions are very rare. They should make they will, if they're any good, and they're good, they will make a motion to change venue. You'd want to get it into there's been talk of Staten Island, which is, I guess the argument there, it's still in New York City, but it's a more balanced place. It's a place where Republicans actually win on occasion. I think Trump has actually won there. Or you could go to Westchester or Nassau County, and both of which are, I think, slightly Democrat these days, but the Republicans have won some elections there. It's much more balanced. And I think the notion, we saw it today, the notion of bringing Trump into downtown Manhattan is a complete farce, and it's going to cause rioting. It's going to cause traffic jams. I think there's and I think the Secret Service would probably chime in on this motion, which is rare, but I think that they would chime in and say, we don't want Trump exposed to, security threats and so on, and congested traffic jams. You've seen all the movies where there's suddenly there's a traffic jam and now somebody gets attacked. And movies tend to reflect reality in that sense. So I think there's a good chance to get it out of New York. They certainly should try. And Staten Island is probably the most likely. There's a lot less congestion there and fewer security problems. The judges there are more likely to be, less likely to be sort of left progressive radical.
Jim, what do you think about 4 years for each count? Is that just a way to threaten Trump and his legal team just to accept any offer?
A guy who's 75, who's been president and has no criminal record, you're not going to get jail time in New York, period. First, even if he was convicted. Second of all, the Secret Service wouldn't let him get jail time because what are they going to do? Go to Attica prison with Trump? They just won't.
They stand outside his jail. That's what they pontificated. They'll post the guards outside his cell.
Yeah, well, he'll get his throat slit in there very quickly, as we all know. But the one weird quirk is that
real quick, I want to touch on.
They could order house arrest, but no, even if he's convicted, he's going to get probation, and the Constitution has very few qualifications for being president. You have to be breathing, and you have to be a natural-born U.S. citizen. So
you got to be 35.
This isn't going to stop. This isn't going to. You have to be 35. This isn't going to stop Trump from running, even if he was convicted like next week. And I was wrong about this. I did not think he was going to be indicted. This was after the confusion and so on, where they withdrew their intention to indict. But I do believe that the case in Georgia is extremely weak. I think the January 6th case is extremely weak. Again, the document classified thing. Those statutes are so complicated, nobody understands them. But the fact that Biden did whatever Trump did and worse is a little bit of a protective.
Yeah, I think they're following through with all of it.
I think all the cases are weak, including the New York case.
The 4 years for every case is not for any other reason but shock value. It's for media. It's for sound bites. It's for headlines. It's for CNN and NBC and all the leftist media outlets to talk about. He could be 150 years of president. It's all horse manure. None of it's reality. They don't give a damn about reality. They're not interested in reality. They're only interested in a narrative. And oh, by the way, changing the venue doesn't necessarily change the judge. This judge is severely compromised when you look at the case he's presided in, not the least of which was the indictment. He should recuse himself, but he will not. Even if he changes venue, doesn't necessarily mean he's going to recuse himself. But the whole thing is a sham. Again, he's guilty of being a deplorable ogre, and they're gonna hold him. They're going to try him in the court of public opinion to prove that he is in fact the ugly American and not fit to be our president.
The judge used to work for Kamala Harris, didn't she, Matthew? Wasn't that the report?
Yeah, there's some connections there, big time.
I'll bet there are.
To the Democrat Party.
Jim, what were you saying, Jim?
He's politically connected. The daughter worked for Kamala. He himself has a political pedigree that's onerous. I don't remember the details.
So Jim, how would that not be a conflict of interest in a court of law? Wouldn't that be the epitome of a conflict of interest?
He also sat in on the Trump Corporation fraud trial, and that doesn't necessarily disqualify you, but I would make a motion to recuse this judge in a second.
But if he doesn't, all it does is set him up for any appeal. So this judge is going to be up to him. I mean, it's all on his conscience whether or not he does. I highly doubt he's going to recuse himself. But what that becomes an issue is for the appeals court going to look at it and say, wow, this guy was severely compromised. That and alone, the guy should have never tried this case. So he didn't get a fair trial. I mean, you can go through the entire Constitution and find multiple, things that they violate, constitutional rights that they've violated, not the least of which is due process, Sixth Amendment, right to a speedy trial. I mean, you go on 14th Amendment procedure, all of it. You can just go right on down the list and see how they violated Trump's constitutional rights.
I wanted to the
You
thing
want
that
to
Tony brought up a few minutes ago about how this will affect the 2024 election if he's going from trial to trial. I believe the independent voter will be is going to be the determining factor on how 2024 will go if our elections are fair and square. So yeah, it will have an impact, obviously, there. Because as far as the MAGA movement, we know where they're going. As far as the left,
Right.
we know who they're supporting.
Yeah, and you're right. The independent is the one that, and you never know where they sit, right? I mean, you never know. They might be confused. They might be afraid. Who knows what they are at this point?
Yes.
Well, I don't think anybody could guarantee that Trump's going to be the nominee, although this certainly helps him. He's extended his lead over DeSantis. But, I mean, the primaries are a long way away, and there are no guarantees.
You heard me at the beginning of the show. I said it's obviously the darkest day because they stooped to this level, but it's also a good day because they basically gave him the presidency today.
I don't know that he's way too far out to
raised
say
$8
that.
million in 24 hours. I mean, that's a record.
Look, that $8 million is nothing.
The
presidential campaign is $1 billion. It's a billion, not millions. It's $1 billion to run for president now.
Merk, you know, he pretty much, this made him more.
No,
popular.
I don't know that. I mean, I certainly see it extends his lead, and it definitely helps him 100%. I acknowledge that. But we're way too far out to make that
more than it hurts him.
What's that?
Do you think it helps him more than it hurts him?
Oh, I think it helps him 100%. I don't believe it hurts him at all. I don't believe it hurts him at all. I mean, who's it going to hurt him with? People that would never vote for him? The same people that think he's a deplorable and an ugly ogre? They haven't changed their mind. So,
don't you agree it brings other people over that?
I don't know. I don't know because people are idiots. You know, I don't believe that the American people have the sophistication and they do their homework. You know, if they're watching CNN and MSNBC, they're going to believe what they're telling them. So I make no assumptions about the level of intelligence or where the American people operate on an intellectual level. I'll make no assumptions about that. Now in 2020, in November, the general election, again, I'll make no assumption there. Listen, we saw what they did in 2020. I mean, so will this be another repeat? I don't know. I do know this. The left will just be further entrenched in their ideologies and hatred for Trump, and the right will be more entrenched, even more inspired to support Trump. And those people that are in the middle are the ones that are going to make a difference. Where they're going to play out, I don't know. I'm not going to make that judgment, but we're way too far out to say anything is assured or guaranteed.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty much overly guaranteed at this point. He's locked in. I mean, he'll be back in there in 2024.
Well, I disagree.
I mean, I see his road to the White House as like 100% now. I mean, there's nobody that could stand in his way. It's not. Go ahead, Jim.
I agree. I've already predicted Trump's going to win, but if he wins, it's going to be narrow because when Hillary, I predicted in 2016. Hillary would get 48% of the vote. Guess what? She got 48% of the vote. Why? Because horrible candidate, but 48% of the vote is an automatic Democratic vote. I think the default Democratic vote is up to 49-50. Why? Because Republicans tend to be older and they're dying off, and the new people coming up heavily are Democrats because of the government control of the school system. And also immigration has its toll too. So the Democrats start out with like about 50% of the vote, no matter what moron, including Biden, is the nominee. I don't think he will be the nominee. I'm a Newsom guy.
He's not even going to run.
That's a big factor. Like who, when you say, is Trump going to win? Well, against who? But I don't think he's a lock. If Trump wins, which I think he will win, it will be very, very narrow, and they have to thread the Electoral College needle.
It's also not just about Trump and the Democrat. I don't believe it's going to be. You see, the problem is they got to throw the whole Democrat package out. They don't want Kamala. They've made that very clear. But you can't send Biden without Kamala. Otherwise, that sends a massive negative signal. So they got to dump out the whole ticket and bring somebody new in. But the real issue is, the independence you're talking about, it's not about Trump. He was injustice, his constitutional. No, it's going to be the pocketbook. And what is going to make the determining factor is how much pain the American people are in come November 2024. We have an economy that's on the verge of collapse. We have a U.S. dollar that is deteriorating. Look at gold; it closed above $2,000 today. We have a serious crisis at the border. Our country's going bankrupt. Our geopolitical situation is a complete colossal mess. When people start to marinate on that, and it settles in the American people, they're then going to vote. They're going to vote for their pocketbook. And what I said in 2020, when I expected a landslide, people were not in enough pain. They were still spending the trillions of dollars in stimulus money they're getting. They're still living large. That money's running out and it's percolated through the system, and there are no more stimulus checks. Now, that assumes that the Biden administration isn't going to dump trillions of more dollars into the system again, and we're all going to get a bunch of checks. So, assuming that we don't do that the Republican House of Representatives doesn't allow that, people are going to vote their pocketbook, and those independents we're going to talk about we're talking about here are going to vote for their economic situation. And when the pain is unbearable, they're going to dump the Democrat Party, and they're going to turn for Trump, DeSantis, whoever it is. They're going to turn Republican.
Okay. If I can add a couple things to this whole situation with the international.
You absolutely can, MJ. The floor is yours, my friend. The floor is yours.
This is just a little outside of what we're talking about. Finland joined NATO today.
Yep, it's official.
Now, and also, the Biden regime gave another
$2.3 billion. That Nelly Feminist got voted out in Finland. The conservatives won the election. I think it was a few days ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And this is what I read about the whole situation as far as how long the Ukrainian conflict's going to go. If Finland is joining NATO, and Biden's embracing them, the U.S. is embracing them, they're probably also telling Finland, hey, we're going to be there for you, but also we're going to be in this Ukraine thing for the duration. Now, that's bad for everybody around, because eventually this could turn really nasty and involve a lot more countries than what's involved right now. So, this, and then what we have here, we have with a former president, a guy, the political opposition arrested today. They didn't get their optics, the mugshot and the perp walk, but it doesn't matter. They showed the photos with Trump in court, and that'll be plastered over every Democrat thing in 2024. But look at him. He's in court all the time. It's bullshit.
Absolutely. Tony, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. At the end of the day, and I agree with what everybody's saying, I'm just really curious on why they're extending it. So, and I guess it's to try to ruin the campaign trail, but his attorneys are going to ask for a continuance if it gets to that point anyway. So it really makes no sense why they're waiting till December. Because I'm pretty sure, I'm not an attorney, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but you can ask for continuance so that he can continue his campaign.
In a case this complicated, if Trump's people wanted to delay, it's very easy to delay. And they might eventually decide to do that, figuring that if Trump gets elected president, this thing will somehow be made to go away. But I do think they will quickly move against the indictment, because they will try to get it in front of the appellate division. Now, all appellate judges in the state are appointed by a Democratic governor, but at least it's a different audience, and there's 5 of them, and they're considered to be, let's say, slightly more independent, although, again, it's New York, and they're all political. Judges are politicians, by the way. This is one of my tenets. My father was a judge. I've written about this. Judges are politicians. And the appellate division in New York State, they literally are elected, but then appointed they're elected to the state Supreme Court. It's a complicated system up here. They're elected trial judges, and then they're appointed by the governor to the appellate court. So that's my prediction. But if Trump's people want to string it out, they'll be able to string it out if they want to.
Yeah, but what do you guys think how long do you think this will go? I think that's a really good question that we haven't even established and really talked about yet. Jim, you're a lawyer. How long?
It could be stretched out past the presidential election. There's 34 felonies.
Holy fuck.
There's million. Oh yes, there's millions.
No, I know there's 34 felonies. I'm saying holy fuck because they could extend it that long.
Well, that's not necessarily to Trump's disadvantage.
True.
I mean, you could argue that either way. There's a lot of documents. There's a lot of there's possible appeals now. So-called interlocutory appeals, meaning appeals during the case, are limited in the criminal case, but they're not impossible. And there's certain they're going to want to get this. If I was Trump's lawyers, I'd want to get something to the appellate division fast, just to get a political read on whether the higher ups are going to go along with the ride on this one, and that affects your strategy in the trial court.
What about a motion to dismiss? Wasn't that argued today or not? Or is that later?
No. There are no motions today. I would make a motion to dismiss based on the form, the inadequate allegations of fact. They're going to make motions to dismiss on statute of limitations ground. The problem with the statute of limitations is without the underlying crimes being identified, it's tough to figure out how to make that motion. They should make selective prosecution, First Amendment retaliation, equal protection. Look, they're really good lawyers, and they'll make all the motions that probably I would make. I would assume they're at least as smart as I am.
Jim, what do you know about this white-collar criminal defense attorney Trump hired? I think his last name is Blanche.
I took a quick look. These are smart guys in the big Wall Street law firms. They're not in court very often. The Tacopina guy is your street smart lawyer who probably can relate to a jury. The other Wall Street guy, he's going to be good at putting motions together to appeal to judges and appellate judges and going through the documents. They've got massive resources in these big firms, although I guess he left his firm. But a guy like that is used to looking at 17 huge boxes of documents and figuring out how to go through it. Tacopina is more of a guy who can appeal to a jury, but maybe a jury more in Brooklyn or Staten Island than Manhattan. So it's good to have a mix of characters on the legal team. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. No, Greg, you want to respond real quick?
The judge himself is corrupt. I mean, expecting all these things to happen, it's all predicated on, what an honest or an ethical judge would do. And I don't believe we have this in this case. So I think all bets are off of anything good happening in Trump's favor. I just don't see it happening.
Well, you know what's interesting, and somebody brought it up tonight when I was watching Tucker. The gag order apparently didn't come into effect immediately, but we heard President Trump tonight, and I'm completely behind him, exposing and illuminating Bragg and what kind of a criminal he actually is. A gag order can come at any time in the trial, right, Jim? At the beginning, the middle, next week, they could put a gag order on Trump, after what he said tonight, which, again, I was fine with. But the judge can impose it at any time, right?
He could.
And that concerns me because
I think Trump went after the judge, didn't he?
Yes, he did. That's 30 days. Now, do you think Trump would ever go back to New York and do a 30-day sentence? I'm telling you that this is still kind of a minefield. We haven't heard the end of this as far as the gag order.
I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to see and get him to say something on his social media platform.
Right.
And then that's what they're going to go after him for. And, I think that's what you're getting at, right, Matthew? They're basically.
Yes. And Rory, the situation is, can you imagine if the judge says, hey, F this, he's doing 30 days.
And then they set an example out of him. And then, can you imagine if they try that? And then what does that mean for the fucking rest of us? This is terrible.
We're screwed, but DeSantis already said on the record he won't extradite him back. Now, was that only with the initial arrest or?
What's the 30-day reference? I might have missed that.
The gag. If he violates the gag rule, it's a 30-day.
Because he likes to go on these social media rants. So I could easily see the judge saying, "Well, he's inciting violence, or he's saying all these provocative things. we need to put him in jail.
He did it tonight.
The only warning was that he not incite riots and use any inflammatory rhetoric. There's no gag order.
But they could basically, you know how they like to mix things up.
Yeah, but there wasn't a gag order, though.
It wasn't.
You're saying there was a gag order. There's no gag order.
I don't think.
The judge did say, "Watch what you say."
That's it, but that's not a gag order.
What you say.
He admonished him. He recommended it, or however you want to put it. He told him, don't use inflammatory language. He cautioned him against using that inflammatory, but he didn't say it as a gag order.
Well, the judge should be careful what you say on social media. I mean,
that's not a gag order.
I don't like hearing that sort of stuff.
Not an order.
Basically, like trying to instill fear or try to intimidate.
That's a suggestion. He can't be held in contempt for that. It would have to be a formal order that would be argued about. There's no order, and the judge knows that if he puts an order on him, that's going to be poorly received. It'll be appealed immediately. Again, if I was Trump's lawyer, I'd be in federal court. I'd go to federal court on that immediately if there was a gag order, as opposed to trusting the state court system. I'd want to get into federal court. In federal court, you got 35 to 40% of the judges appointed by Trump. In New York State, 0 were appointed by any Republican.
Wow. And you got to understand that these people are not just about killing Trump. They're real believers. They're believers. So when the judge says Trump, be careful, he really believes that Trump is going to incite people to go riots and burn down cities. Of course, they ignore the fact that BLM, Antifa, and all of that. But these kind of crazy radical believers, they don't see the world through the same lens that you and I see the world. So when they tell Trump to do these things, they know that in their mind, they're thinking Trump's going to rally people January 6th, and they're going to smash buildings and burn the cities down. So that's why he's telling things, because you got to understand, it's not like they're so complex and devious. They're more intelligent than artificial intelligence. These people just see the world through a very different perspective and worldview. And they think that Trump's going to go out there and rally his people up to burn the cities down. And he's cautioning them, hey, don't do that. And if you think about it, if you're that kind of mentality, a radical leftist, a progressive, that is kind of a natural warning or caution for you to levy on Donald Trump. So you can't think like, why is this doesn't make sense? You have to think like an idiot, like a moron, like a progressive, like a leftist. And everything the Democrats do, you have to think like one of them, and then you begin to get an understanding and to make inroads into their motivation.
Well, listen to the thing what the mayor of New York City said to MTG. Said, "Oh, we don't want you going near that park at 10:30 and having your protest. We think it could get out of hand." She's a member of Congress. She can pretty much do what she wants. If she wants to hold a protest or speak about First Amendment rights. But the New York City mayor, to have the balls to say that, and even brags to say, "Hey, we don't want things to get out of hand, and I run a tight ship here." The city is in chaos. I mean, the balls to say it's unbelievable.
And I'm reading here, obviously this would never happen, but they have to state this sort of stuff, by law. This is how it goes in the curriculum in the jurisdiction. But Trump's maximum sentence could be 136 years. That's never going to happen. He's going to get no time in jail. But let's just say, hypothetically, if he was convicted on everything, that's what he would face. Jim, isn't that insane?
Yeah, it's like the headline on TV, Trump under arrest.
Right.
It's just inflammatory.
Right.
He's not going to serve a day in jail for this. And if they put Trump in jail, I think you'd see civil unrest.
Yeah.
And then, these alleged, this is what Bragg alleged, is that Trump falsified business records. I mean, wouldn't they have had this a long time ago? I mean, they went after him for everything, and they never found a damn thing. It was just investigation after investigation. Jim, what are your thoughts?
He's the most investigated man in human history. I'm going to keep saying that. Obviously, they were so shocked that he beat Hillary. They had everything planned out. It was going to be this sort of continuation of progressivism's victories since 1913. And the Republican Party is there to be kind of the Washington Generals. I'm stealing that metaphor from many, many other commentators. And then and I've been a huge critic of the Republican Party, but I view Trump differently. I thought Trump was something quite different. And I'm part of the wing of the libertarian movement that was interested in just to a large extent favorable, not on every issue. So they were so shocked that somebody would come along to break up that inevitable narrative of left progressive totalitarian government forever that they've never recovered. I used to watch Mika and Morning Joe before Trump came down the escalator. They weren't totally crazy. Right. They've been totally different. The entire media has been different and crazier. The country's gotten crazier since Trump. It's Trump derangement syndrome. It's a real thing. And they've used every conceivable attempt to investigate him, violating, most of the Bill of Rights. And it's all bullshit.
I watched.
That's the point I was making. That goes way back. They wanted Trump. I mean, it was a dream. When Trump came down the elevator, it was a dream that this guy might actually. He was a big joke, but deep down inside, they were just kind of imagining and dreaming about Trump being the nominee. And they gave him all of that media access, all of it, $1 billion worth. And when they had him as a nominee, they were celebrating, and so was Hillary. I mean, the world was going to change. Finally, the glass ceiling. She had that multi-million-dollar party that was, and it fell through. When that did, I mean, it's one thing when somebody else hurts you and that nothing you could do about it. It's another thing when you hurt yourself. When you do something stupid, there's far deeper and more profound regret when you do something stupid and it ends up costing you. These people did it to themselves. They made Donald Trump the nominee. Make no mistake. Yes, he's a master marketer. But had he not gotten the $1 billion worth of access and free campaign, I do not believe he would have been the nominee. Everywhere Donald Trump went, the cameras were there. So, I mean, you can argue that in favor or against it, but the point is the media knew what they wanted to do with Trump, and they got him to the ticket in expectation that Hillary would be the president of the United States. It didn't happen, and they blame themselves, and there's that deep loathing hatred for themselves that really they're projecting. They're projecting on every MAGA, every Trump supporter, and on Donald Trump, because really they knew that they themselves have the blame, but they're not going to blame themselves. They're going to just take it out on every MAGA person and on Donald Trump.
I think the morning of the election, even 538 was saying Hillary has like a 90% chance to win.
Yeah.
So it came as this gigantic shock to the system.
Oh, you saw it at night. You saw it at like 1. You could see it in the people, in the tears, in the somber silence at the Hillary multi-million-dollar party in the glass ceiling. You started seeing the looks on people's faces, and they started trickling out. They knew it. The fat lady was singing, and they were going home in disbelief and shock. And that's when the media firestorm began, and it's been that way for 8 years now.
I was up all night. I remember waking my son up to hear Trump come out. Was it at like 3:30 a.m.?
Yeah.
It was amazing.
I even think Trump was surprised.
Hey, Rory, what you were asking a couple minutes ago, D.A. Bragg came out today. If you watch his press conference, he was asked about, why are you going after Trump? He said his specialty in his office specialty is white collar crime. And he's been investigating that for years and years in New York City. And it makes him like this great guy. And we caught Trump and we're going to put Trump in jail. But that's what he was, the questions he was asking, he was being asked, what's his big focus? And he said he's an expert on white collar crime. That's why he's going after Trump.
Yeah. Except he's accusing him for influencing an election. Forget about what Biden what they did, influencing an election. But he committed these crimes in 2017. So I guess he, I don't know. Maybe I don't know how that works. The crimes were committed in 2017. The election is in 2016. But these crimes were to influence the outcome of the election. The election was already the outcome had already happened.
One of the points made is relevant to that. One of the points made legally, and I've been asking it all week. Who's the complainant here? these normal prosecutions of white collar crime is usually somebody who was defrauded of money or property. And that's going to be one of the legal problems here, that there is a narrow definition of fraud, that nobody was defrauded of money and property. Nobody complained. The complainant here was the left progressive Democratic Party that rummaged through, when the Supreme Court allowed Trump's tax returns to be turned over. I thought that was totally egregious, amazingly illegal. And I didn't have much faith in the Supreme Court anyway as a libertarian, but I like Thomas, and I think Gorsuch is a Jeffersonian. But in any event, that was a very disappointing decision.
If laws matter, this wouldn't even be a case. They would have no case. If the law mattered, if the Constitution mattered, we wouldn't be watching this unfold on television. So you could say all you want. I mean, the statute of limitations, apparently it doesn't matter. If they had any respect for the rule of law, Donald Trump would have never been indicted, and this thing we wouldn't even be talking about it.
It's true.
Hey, Rory, I gotta check out. Any other quick questions for?
Yeah, Tony, you have any response?
Deadline.
Yeah, I think the ironic part of all this is that they're indicting Trump in a state where criminals can do whatever they want, like California, right? I mean, we just had Hilda Solis try to pass a bill that, God, I'm so happy that people in LA County woke up and pushed back about if if the bail is less than $50,000, they're just going to give you a ticket and send you home.
What?
Yeah, they were trying to do that for the last 2 days, but people started calling and bugging her office, and she backed down.
Thank God. Jesus.
Sounds like Philly.
So I mean, here we are indicting Trump, and I know there's 34 indictments, and I read them, and it's really the same thing, right? It's just different dates. On this day, he lied about this. On this day, he lied about that. So, we all know this is all political. This is all about. It's a campaign promise that moron made, that he finally decided to do something with it. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but I do believe they're going to drag it on. And like Jim said, it might be to Trump's benefit to drag it on, right? Let him go out there and campaign and talk to people so people realize what he's really about. Like the speech tonight. I was kind of glad that he focused on all the problems are, right, in our country and what he intends to do about it when he wins. So I like that instead of the regular Trump where he's bashing everything.
Guys, I gotta go.
Yeah, amen. Jim, tell everybody where they can find you, where they can get involved.
Twitter, Facebook, Amazon, and on your network.
Absolutely, man. We'll talk to you
See
very
you guys.
soon. God bless, man. Talk to you soon. Greg, going back, or Matthew, you have any updates for us?
No, I just was going to mention about the Trump speech tonight. MTG was there. Greg's friend Matt Gaetz was there, and a couple other people. But what was missing? Where are the prominent GOP people to support Trump? I mean,
Like who?
It's a big issue. I know you're going to laugh. Like a Mitch
Gates,
McConnell or
your
somebody
buddy
way up
Gates,
there.
your boyfriend.
What was Mitt Romney?
That's your boyfriend, Gates.
I mean,
He was front center.
Guy, man.
He was front row.
Greg, you should have been. Now, Pensacola, where are you at?
Greg, you should have been there, man. You should have been Matt. You should have said, Matt, what's going on, brother? How are you? What would he have done, dude? What would he do if you went up to him, Greg? Would he
he would shun me because he doesn't like that I shun him and his wife. Because I don't pay any attention to him because he is a liar and a deceiver, and I don't shake hands with the devil. So I ignore him. So he ignores me. It's kind of that way.
Greg, I'm just asking, did he have he must have had a lot of money behind him, right? I mean,
his father's got millions. He's a multimillionaire. And sure, he had like $3 million in his account. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
Money's no object with him. He's got tons of money.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. His old man's crooked. And had look, when they lobbied Congress to get Congress to pay for a hospice or get Medicare to pay for hospice care. He had a hospice company and he made millions and millions of dollars and sold that company. And interestingly, about 2 years, I guess, maybe don't quote me on that. 2 years after, the owner was indicted for Medicare fraud. Fake billing, overbilling Medicaid and Medicare. And, the notion that his crooked father wasn't doing the same, that's probably where I learned it, obviously it's just conjecture on my part.
Was the father
his father's crooked.
Greg, was the father a politician?
Oh yeah. He was the president of the Senate. A long history, very short history. I have a lot of stories about the father.
I was just curious. So I was wondering if the family was connected, the whole family politically.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, when Gates was elected in the primary, there were 8 people in the primary. Now, his old man and Miller, who was the congressman, they kind of Miller announced in like September that he wasn't going to run again, and then old man Gates stepped in and I think told him, "Hey, don't announce that you're going to that you're not running. Just hold it off." And he got his son Matt, who was running for the state house. He's got him everything in line so that in March, very late March of that year, he announced he was not running, and then Matt Gaetz jumped in the race, and he was the only person. He had all his ducks in a row, all the money lined up, and then another 7 people jumped in the race, and they were way behind. But he only won with 30% of the vote at that time, and most of the people that were in that race were bozos. But a lot of people that voted for Matt Gaetz thought they were voting for his father, Don Gaetz.
Greg, how big's the congressional district there that you're running in?
Well, like all districts, 800,000, give or take.
Okay.
I mean, square footage miles, it's like 4.5. It's 5 counties. It's half of Holmes County and 4 other counties. But, like all districts in America, about 800,000 people. They're all the same. They're all based on population. And, really it's the coverage, Escambia County, Santa Rosa County, Walton County, Okaloosa County, and part of Holmes County. So it's the whole Northwest, the whole section of the state.
The Panhandle, or what do they call that?
Yeah.
Where you live?
Yeah.
Okay.
That whole section. It's a large area, mileage-wise, square miles.
Matthew, you were bringing up how the GOP is not uniting and getting behind Trump enough. I agree. There's a lot of pussies out there that don't want to put their.
Well, Jim Jordan was on Hannity tonight, and we're going to do this, that, and the other thing. We're going to get Bragg in, but does anything ever fucking come of it, man?
No.
I mean,
I've always said Jim Jordan
in American history.
I've always said Jim Jordan is no different than Trey Gowdy. He's all talk. He's no action. He talks a big game, but nothing ever comes of it. I mean, it's so phony. It's so phony.
Trump's going to have to go alone like he's always has. He has to go alone on this shit.
Matthew, you watched it on Tucker, the speech, right?
Yeah.
Did you see before the speech, Tucker was talking to Tulsi Gabbard, and she was defending. She was calling what they're doing, a travesty. At least she's out there vocally trying to defend what's going on against Trump, where the Republicans aren't going to do anything. Just like when they were running for the election, when we get the House, we're going to do this, that. We're going to go back. They haven't done squat.
Yeah, they're not doing anything for him. I mean, nothing.
Hey, talk about spoiler alert. I read an article where they're thinking or they're pontificating that Joe Manchin could run as a third party.
Oh,
that'd be interesting.
That would sink it for the Democrats.
Oh, yeah.
He'd be the next Ross Perot.
But why would he do that? Kind of because they've deceived him? They've betrayed him?
Well, yeah, partially. Maybe he's had as they say, the pejorative, the come to Jesus moment, that the Democrat Party is so far left radical. He doesn't really identify with the Democrats like they do. But at the same token, he doesn't really identify as Republicans either. I mean, don't be fooled by him either. So he may find himself like, well, the country's going to hell in a handbasket, and if I could throw my name in the race and throw it for Democrats, he's not going to get the nomination if he runs as a Democrat, or maybe he doesn't expect it. But he figures, hey, I could pull 10% of the vote, 7%, whatever, and I could seal the deal for the Republican and maybe Donald Trump.
You know who else is talking about running and is getting more and more serious? All right.
Oh, that clown. All right. Yeah. Stay in Texas there, long hair.
McConaughey in Texas. I mean, what do you think about the Texas native running for the presidency? What do we think about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Stick to acting.
Have at it. Go play some more make believe, and let the Rock, let him get into it too. He wants to run for president. Yeah, go ahead.
Who's this guy, Asa Hutchinson? That now.
Oh, Asa, former governor of
Arkansas.
Yeah, he's
What's
a clown too.
What's his deal?
He's running for president.
I know. On what platform? What did he do for Arkansas?
He's a rhino. He's not. He hates Trump. He thinks Trump's the devil.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, so he doesn't really. All he has is anti-Trump rhetoric, pretty much on his plate to run on.
So they'll give him money. They'll give him money to campaign. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure the Lincoln Project and groups like that will give him plenty of money. Who else though? John Bolton is talking about running. He's pretty much declared that he is. Mike,
I think I'd rather vote for Michael Bolton.
yeah, you don't like? I thought you liked Johnny Bolton and his mustache. I thought you love his mustache.
Yeah, it's Bolton would have been a great president in 1896.
Oh, that was good. I like that. Mike Pompeo's talking about running.
Yeah, he was all over the internet today again, Rory. He's a big supporter of the Ukraine thing.
Yeah,
giving him as
he's
much
over
money
there right now.
He loves giving that money to Ukraine. He defends it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's he lost all that weight though.
Jesus Christ, man, he lost like 100 fucking pounds, man.
He's kind of gained some of it back though, but that's because you don't want. Again, this is not 1896. You can't be a big fat rotund president in the United States in today's very media centric and all image country that we live in. You can't be a big fat slob.
And Greg, and then let's also go through the list. We have the Indian entrepreneur Vivek Ramsgavaki. I don't know his last name is tricky, but he's a very talented, smart guy.
Yeah, he's a
business.
Vikaswamy. Yeah, Vikaswamy. He's a smart guy, but
here's
come on.
What worries me though
Let's
is the
be real.
World Economic Forum ties. He's got a lot of. And he's been on the board there for the last couple of years, and that's not a
I mean, he's pretty credentialed conservative, but I mean, let's be serious. There are some things that you want youthfulness and you want virility, and everybody that runs for president, they dye their hair black, and then when they become president, they want to be shown as distinguished and old and mature, so they let their hair turn gray. They think that the office turns their hair gray. The fact is, they stop dyeing their hair.
Being president ages somebody, of course it does. I mean,
yeah, but don't kid yourself. It doesn't turn their hair gray. They stop dyeing their hair gray. When they're out there on the campaign trail, they want to look virile and young. Hey, look at me. And then when they go in there, it's like, hey, you got to look mature now. You got to look like you're serious. Gray hair gives you that distinguished, serious
Greg,
wisdom.
The only exception I've ever seen of somebody not aging while in office
Ronald Reagan.
is Trump. Trump came out looking younger.
Ronald Reagan or Trump's been dyeing his hair. But see, Trump's been dyeing his hair since he was 30.
What?
Trump's been dyeing his hair since he was 30, though. So yeah, Trump was never going to kind of succumb to that. I mean, he's too kind of, maybe narcissistic about his looks. But I'm telling you, from Obama,
but look at what it did. Yeah, look at what it did to Obama, Clinton, Bush. I mean, they aged like crazy.
But I'm telling you that it's not so much the aging with the hair. It's they let it go to look more distinguished and more mature, wiser. It's like the old wise man with the long beard.
That's how I do it, yeah.
But anyway, that's just neither here nor there. But Vikaswamy, smart guy, but I mean, come on, he's a child. Give me a freaking break. He's a child. I mean, do you trust him in front of Xi Jinping or Vladimir Putin to slap him around like a little bitch boy? That guy's not going to lead the free world, and what makes somebody like that think they could run for? But you know what? He's not running. He's not a serious. If you watch that series, Succession, great show last week. You're not serious people. He called his kids, "I love you," but you're not serious people. Look, he's not a serious person. You know what he loves? He loves. Look at me. He loves being on television. Everybody talk. I run for president. Look at me. You know what? Do something a little more with your life. Okay, make a few bucks in the market. Yeah, good for you. But when you start getting on the world stage, when you start doing things that have international impact. Oh, by the way, maybe if you served your country and wore a uniform and fought in a war, something like that, bring something to the table besides, hey, you can articulate a good message. Not good enough, because the world is an ugly place, and you got to be able to fight and kick ass. If you can't fight and kick ass, you don't belong in the White House.
Rory, I was trying to bait Elon Musk into replying to another one of my tweets today. Why didn't he comment on what was happening in New York City? I mean, he almost did. He had a picture of Trump from 1980 and some kind of weird comment above it. But this would be a perfect time for him. I mean, he jumped in with the J6 guy, the shaman guy, and that guy eventually got released, as you know. He should try to incrementally start getting into what's going on, because a lot of American people were obviously furious of what the Democrats are doing. But Elon Musk, he wants to walk this tightrope. I think he should just jump the fuck in.
Right. And, and going back to people running, we got that smelly lesbian rhino, Nikki Haley, who's a piece of shit.
Another one that loves Ukraine.
She's a neocon.
Yep.
She's a
These
Paul
people,
Ryan.
I don't have any problem with despising Vladimir Putin. He's a piece of crap, and the guy.
Let me keep going. Who else is running?
Chris Christie.
Yeah, he thinks
Krispy
he's the only one.
Chris Krispy Kreme.
He thinks he's the only one that can beat Trump in a head-to-head.
Get the fuck out of here.
He thinks he's the only one. He thinks he's the only one that can challenge Trump on a debate stage and put him in his place.
Jesus Christ.
He's too fat. In a hot dog eating contest, he could win, but he's too fat.
Chris Christie, your buddy. Tony, what do you have to think about everything we're talking about?
Well, I mean, and I know this hasn't been made public yet, but Larry Elder's thinking about running for president.
Yeah, Larry Elder too. Yeah,
I was at an event. I was at an event last week to listen to him speak and got a few minutes of his time and
he's going to waste his time and money. Maybe he has a lot of time.
How did he do in the governor race? How did he make it?
He lost. He lost.
He
No,
lost.
I know, but what kind of numbers?
like
It doesn't matter. He lost.
Did he get like 30-something%?
He got 30-something%. Yeah.
That's not bad.
He did pretty good.
Hey, lose the governor's race, run for president. That's the progression, I guess.
But it's California. He did better than most would do as a conservative in California.
They couldn't attack him. They did.
They did attack him. They called him blackface.
Yeah. They did a
racist.
Yep.
They did a bunch of nasty shit to him.
They attacked him. Yeah, they did.
Wow.
Yeah, they were not nice to that guy. They were not nice to him.
You're right. And the only person who I see is, and I want more people the better in the race. And I've always heard the only people that the person I think that should be in this race right now is DeSantis. He's the only one really that I think has the credentials and really could. I look to see, hey, that guy could be president. I still support Trump, but Larry Elders, I'm sorry, man. Yeah, he's just taking up space in air.
What do you think
about Larry Elders? But
what do you think about DeSantis and what he just did in Florida with the concealed
carry?
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I was celebrating that today. That when I heard on the radio, you just signed it. And you know what? Not that getting a concealed permit here, it's not like New York State where, you have to know somebody and be carrying large sums of cash. And it's almost impossible to get a concealed permit in New York. But here it's very easy. Go pay $5. I think in New York State, it's in the hundreds of dollars just to get your fingerprints. Here in Florida, you go to the sheriff's office, $5. Send your fingerprints in. And as long as you took a safety course, or if you have a DD-214 as a military, you'll get very quickly. I think it took me all of maybe 3 weeks to get my concealed carry permit. But hey, this is great. Better yet, you don't even need to do any of that. You just go out and buy your weapon and pass the background check.
Greg, how many reciprocal agreements does Florida have for concealed with other states?
Well, all the surrounding states. I think I probably can go all the way to Texas. I think. If I'm not mistaken, and maybe up. I know I can't go anywhere with it, but there's quite a few. I don't know how many.
Yeah, but when I saw you skiing a couple of weeks ago, I thought you had your sidearm on.
When you saw me skiing, yeah,
That's a joke.
I do bring it to New York. I'll admit that. So I just don't carry it.
Oh yeah,
like this.
On top of this Trump thing, everybody's looking at us as a weak nation. That's what we've really become. I read yesterday that Japan is still buying gas from or oil from Russia, and they're supposed to be one of our allies. And they're paying more than $60, I think, a barrel. And I think there was a deal struck when all this happened that you couldn't buy oil. It had to be kept at $60 or lower to buy it from Russia and China and Japan.
That was part of the sanctions.
Yeah.
That they were going to cap it at that to try to keep their money. But like I said yesterday, these countries are not going to honor that. Oh yeah, we're with you, America. But when it comes right down to it, they're going to put their food on their table, and they're going to heat their homes and put gasoline in their cars, and they're going to do it in whatever way is economically best in their people's best interest. It's like, good luck enforcing that. You know, the idea that this administration is going to expect these countries to comply with these kind of sanctions, it's laughable. And with Joe Biden, to show you how delusional he is, he actually thinks that that he can impose these sanctions and people will abide by them. They're not going to do that. Laughing in his face.
Do gas prices traditionally, Greg, go up as we approach the summer? Because, you know, OPEC said they're cutting back in Russia. Do they usually go up regardless when the summer hits?
Yeah, and they do that for no good reason because, as usual, the ridiculous regulations in this pathetic, over-regulated country, they require certain more additives for summer because of the heat, the global warming and all that. So they have to have these multi-grades, and every state, of course, has its own regulatory requirement. So the refineries have to make multiple kinds of it's like you instead of making one product, one size fits all. You got to make 20 products for all the states and different times of year. So it traditionally always goes up during the summer because of summer heating and because of the regulatory requirements. So it's all asinine and unnecessary. But yes.
How high, if they keep cutting production, do you think gas will be by June? I know California probably be like, what is it now in California, Rory? About 7 or 8?
No, where I'm at, like 450.
That's not bad.
In LA is about 520.
Okay.
I don't think anybody could predict that because there's so many factors involved. I mean, obviously our own production, how much, where you try to predict what OPEC and OPEC plus is going to do, they're cutting. What is the economic growth? That's a factor. If the economy starts growing and the world starts opening up, greater demand, it's going to decrease the supply. There are a lot of factors in there to predict it. I do know this, the dollar is on its way down. That's going to increase the price of oil because it's still dollar denominated. So as the dollar falls, that in of itself is going to push prices up. And as global demand increases, that's going to push the price up as well. So I don't think we could predict it. I would say I would not be surprised if we see $100 a barrel by the end of the summer.
Yeah, and Greg, going back to this whole Florida Ron DeSantis scenario, why did he wait until he was running for president to sign this into law, this concealed carry scenario?
No, that's not his doing. That's the legislature.
I know, but it could have been done a long time ago. It should have been done.
No, it's got to be done based on what the legislature. Look, we got some feckless Republicans here in Florida. I mean, make no mistake, we got some feckless Republicans.
But don't you think the timing's interesting, though, Greg, with him running?
It's just timing. They've been working on this thing for a while now. It's stuck in committee, and they're haranguing there, and it finally comes out of committee, and then it gets voted on, and then it gets to his desk. But it's been worked on and talked about for a long time. But there's more work to be done here in Florida by way of gun laws, that's for sure. You still can't buy a long rifle unless you're 21. That needs to be repealed.
Right. Matthew, you wanted to say something?
No, I was just going to comment. I was wondering what the status of DeSantis' war against Walt Disney. I know he was going at him for quite some time, pulling some of their privileges or exemptions they had. I was wondering if that's still going on, and what's the relationship with DeSantis and Disney at the moment?
Yeah, Iger's fighting back on that. Iger's trying to play hardball, and they're still making an issue on that. But, in the end, DeSantis, he's the governor, and we have a Republican-controlled Senate and a Republican-controlled House. So in the end, DeSantis is going to win.
Yes. You got to give him that, man. He's going against all this woke stuff.
Hey, Tony, we have a few minutes left. Tony, we have a few minutes left. Can you stick around?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, what were you going to say, Tony?
No, at least he's pushing back and fighting Disney. Disney's very powerful. We don't have that luxury in California, as Rory knows. Our governor's too busy politicking and playing games and trying to trash the state of Florida every chance he gets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just talking on the show yesterday. I wish you were on the panel yesterday. You could have chimed in on this. What LA County was trying to do with bail based off of systematic racism. Did you hear about that story?
Yeah, they squashed it today. Hilda Solis, the city supervisor that wrote up the policy or whatever you want to call it, got so much
the bill,
so much pushback on that she's decided to to put it aside for now. But the scary part is that even the LA County sheriff, the new guy that they elected, he had nothing to say about it. He was okay with that.
Is it who? What's the guy's name? Lulu? Lua?
I forget. Luna.
Luna. Yeah, Luna.
Because
yeah.
remember, it's not about blank's not about blank. This is not about getting your streets safer and making your community safer. This is about wealth redistribution. And I tell you, I had a political consultant here, complete ass clown. He was trying to tell me, like I listen to consultants anyway. This yo-yo was trying to tell me that I need to when I run for state rep, we got to talk about bail reform. It's terrible because you got these single dads and then they got to pay bail and they can't make bail, so they got to go to jail, and then their kids can't eat. It's a terrible thing. And I'm like, okay, jackass, I got a solution to that. Don't commit the crimes, all right? And then you won't have to worry about the bail.
Right.
So it's not just Democrats that believe this crap. You got idiot Republicans that think that bail is a bad thing too. Takes the father out of the family. You know what takes the father out of the family? Drug addict, low-life abusers of the law and make bad mistakes or huge mistakes and suffer consequences. They take themselves out of the family, not the system.
Tony, you wanted to say something?
No, I agree with Greg. I mean, we keep trying to appease special groups and special interests with nonsense laws that we don't really need to have, right? The Constitution is pretty clear, right? So we don't need extra laws to protect a certain group of people. Kind of like Budweiser with the new beer now, right? With the transgender person on it.
Was that real?
I'm not sure if it's real or not yet.
I don't think they're selling them, but I know for a fact that Dylan, the transgender, received cans with the she's face on it. I'm not going to call it. I'm not going to call that person.
Right.
What
it's just that we're always so busy trying to protect people that are committing bad things out there, whether it's grooming our kids, whether it's committing crimes. We're trying to come up with laws. Oh, we don't need people incarcerated. We need to close the central jail in LA because too many minorities are in jail. Well, then stop committing a freaking crime. Doesn't really matter.
But we got too many good people who misinterpret virtue as being this idea that you're not allowed to judge evil. And when good people stop judging evil and they think that makes them virtuous, that creates this mess that we're in. That makes us a very miserable people. Good people have a right to judge evil. And as a matter of fact, if we don't judge evil and call it out, then evil will overcome the good. And that's where we're at in this country right now. Evil is overcoming good.
Greg, I wanted to finish with what you were asking. The tranny did get Bud Lights with the face on it, but they're not selling them or anything. But I know a lot of people are boycotting Bud Light right now because of it.
There's a big investigation.
What?
There's a big investigation. A thing I read today. Apparently, some leftists got a hold of some funding and whatnot, and there's an internal investigation with Anheuser. Whoever makes it, Anheuser-Busch, whoever makes Bud Light, they're saying that the company as a whole wasn't behind it. It's hard to believe, but they're looking into it. But Kid Rock was all over it today. Kid Rock was all over it.
He was.
Bud Light thing.
But what I'm saying is, you're not going to see those.
Yeah, you won't see the cans.
Yeah, you won't see them in stores. But I know that Dylan tranny person got a bunch of cans with God. I don't want to. I'm just going to say with the face on it, because I don't want to call a he or a she, because it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I don't even know how to label this person.
Rory, Coors Light was trending today because they said everybody's going to drift from Bud Light. It was on Twitter. It was trending. And then a couple of people got on and said, well, look at these Coors Light cans with all the LGBT flags on it, because it's brewed in Colorado, and Denver apparently has these special Coors Light cans for that month of their celebration month or whatever. So I think they all kind of embrace it a little bit. You just don't this last one with the Bud Light, it was kind of bigger than the usual stuff.
Yeah,
they better do their homework. That's not a smart business move.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean,
it's one thing to go after a demographic, and they did that with all these sweet drinks. I'm not a drinker. I despise alcohol of any kind. But the beer companies and Anheuser-Busch, they started taking these, whatever, these seltzers and hard seltzers and all these little kind of girly drinks because it was reaching a demographic. Young people were changing, and there were no hardcore. The hardcore beer drinkers was kind of diminishing. So they opened it up because it's a new demographic, a new market, and it's been very profitable for them. I don't see how Tranny Joe with his boyfriend's dice dangling from his forehead makes for good business in selling beer. I just don't see it.
Oh, I know. It's fucking insane, man.
Who's giving them all this money to promote it? Because somebody's giving them money to promote this message. It's obvious. They're trying to signal this to to all these different people. They're trying to basically shove it down the public's throat. It's indoctrination in a way, and we either have to accept it or we're called bigots. So
I know, like, as a marketing tool, there's such a small segment of society subscribes to that lifestyle.
Because anybody in business would know this is bad for business.
Yeah.
It's not a sane and logical route to go down. So you have to wonder who's giving them money to do this, because there's somebody giving them money to promote this message.
Mm-hmm.
Who's giving all these corporations all this money to spread this, demonic, satanic LGBTQ message that only resonates with 1 or 2% of the population, if that?
Yeah.
The trannies are way less than 1%, but even, the gays and lesbians, are they only like 1 or 2% of the population?
Rory, I thought you were going to say there's a new tranny beer.
No, I'm just saying, all these corporations pander to such a small.
Well, I mean, when it comes to marketing, I don't know if they, how they don't give money necessarily. But Anheuser has a massive advertising budget, and they pay. They don't like, hey, give us some donations, and we'll give you our beer.
There's influence from the outside, is what I'm saying. They're not. Yeah.
They're being lobbied to do it. You're saying they're being lobbied.
I mean, there could be shakedowns. Hey, either you do this or we're going to make you look like a transphobe beer. But, I don't know. I just can't see okay, we make beer for a living. Good luck selling that to beer drinkers that we don't support somebody's dice on your forehead. So good luck with that.
I mean, what and going forward, how are we supposed to tolerate transgenders? Does anybody?
We're not supposed to. That's why I say good is to call out evil, and we have to stop tolerating it. And you know what? DeSantis doing a good thing here.
Are we supposed to say he, she? Are we supposed to say he, she? Is that what we're supposed to say?
I think every time you capitulate, you enable them more, and you just push back and say no. And it's going to come down to this is the importance of the 10th Amendment. States' rights. If you want to live in that kind of state where you'll be arrested or fined because you don't call somebody the proper gender, then that's your state. Have at it. And then the other states like Florida and Texas and Tennessee, we will be the beneficiaries of the massive influx and all the economy that's exploding here. So it's really going to come down to states' rights. But the people have to push up against that. And that's why, again, this is a bipartisan issue and problem. I mean, our own Republican here co-sponsored a sexual orientation gender identity bill. He's a Republican, and he wanted that to be on the Florida Constitution to make it part of our civil rights legislation here in the state of Florida, that you can't discriminate on basis of gender identity. So that means if that boy wants to use that girl's bathroom, because you have to allow it. And if you're a business owner, you have to allow it. This is the problem we have, because it's in both parties. They're afraid to call out evil, and they think that somehow that makes them virtuous. Because I don't judge. Judge not.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to think anymore.
It's not just in the United States with this misgendering issue. The UK and Ireland, big problems. You'll have a knock at the door from the police, particularly in the UK. If you misgender, it's a big. They think it's a big thing, like 3 months in jail if you misgender. It's insane. Once you let them change everything, you know what I mean? The way you can talk, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just the idea that society, I mean, if you would have asked me 20 years ago or 10 years ago if this is where we'd be at, I would have said hell no. I mean,
And that's why I say, this whole optimism thing. And, I loved Rush Limbaugh. I loved listening to Rush, but he was like this eternal optimism. Optimistic about what? Because you've been saying this since 1990. Can you imagine? What did you talk about? Optimistic about America? We were not mutilating and castrating young boys and giving double mastectomies to 13-year-old girls in 1990. So how have we held the line in terms of our values in America over the last 30 years? We've been losing the battle, and we're losing more and more ground every single year. Hell, every single month for that matter.
I believe the only way to tame them, to control the transgender community,
put them in jail
and put them in jail, put them in institutions. Put them in Muslim-style concentration camps like they do in China. I mean, give them food, give them water.
How about some shock therapy?
Yes, that too. Make them change their ways. I'm not against shock therapy. I think a lot of people need it, and I think it can benefit a lot of lives. And I will tell you that if you instill fear in people, if you, put people in a locked-away place and make them think about their behavior and reflect, you'd be amazed on what happens. And if you make them accept Jesus, that's another thing. They have
you
to
can't make somebody accept Jesus.
Yeah, no. Yep. They have to be this is how I want things to go down. I want them to have a Bible. They have to read the Bible. Okay. I will just let this is.
You're sounding like a David Koresh type individual.
No.
Sounds more like a Karl Marx or a Joseph Stalin.
No. This is okay. When has ever anything bad come from letting God and Jesus and the Bible into your life? And I'm going to tell you,
it's never come bad. But forcing it,
I'm going to tell you. You lock these people away. You have them see psychiatrists and specialists, people that can. Give them proper diagnosis and, obviously observe them. And you also make them read the Bible. And every day they have to tell you something new they learned about the Bible.
Or what? You beat them? Or you shock them? Electrocute them?
No. And if they don't, they just get longer time and they have to start over. It's like a program.
Hey, you know what? While they're in there, let's put them to work too. Have them make sneakers.
Yes.
Let's have them make sneakers.
Well, dude, I'm all for transgenders and hard labor. I'm all for fucking Django.
I want them to make Nikes because that's what the Uyghurs do.
I'm all for Django Unchained for transgenders. I'm all for it. Slavery for transgenders.
How about pot therapy? I thought you were going to mention pot therapy. You think that would work too?
What?
Smoking pot therapy, marijuana.
What would that do for them?
It would
get them high. Maybe they'll see their way.
Mind so they'd be more impressionable.
No, you know what I think here? I really think that we need to. No, Tony, we're going to be closing here in literally 5 minutes.
Okay.
What we need to do, Greg, is we need to stop the problem before it expands like a plague.
We're a little
like
past
the
that.
Disease like the disease that it is.
Yes.
It's a virus.
But you're saying that like you're like the doctor, you're like the oncologist. You come in there and you're puking up blood and you've got massive tumors all over your lungs and you're saying, we need to stop the spread of this cancer. It's a little too late. You're stage 4.
You're
hacking up a lung.
No, you're right in the sense that it has advanced. It has gone to another level, but I believe there still is another level that it could go to if we don't just fucking stop it. And you know what that fucking level is?
Extinction?
Extreme pedophilia. Like it's already slightly being normalized right now, but eventually, if we don't stop this shit, it's going to be completely normalized. And they're going.
Rory, it's already normalized.
Well, it is, but in a subtle manner, in a slight way. But eventually, it's going to be much more visible. It's going to be much more in front of our eyes. It's going to be much more normalized. It's going to be.
Well, let me ask you this, Rory.
Tolerated. Right now, they're trying to hide it more. They're trying to say, "Oh no, we're not doing any But in the future, they're going to be like, oh yeah, this is what
Okay.
society
Yeah,
is now. We're
right.
doing
Well,
this.
let me ask you something, Roy, because somebody who believes
People will
that
go along with it because the media will be paid to go along with it, and the politicians will go along with it. Hollywood will go along with it. Well, they already are, but they're being subtle about it. But it's going to get way more obvious. And I know where I'm going with my point. Go ahead.
Well, government is not the solution to the problems. They're the problems standing in the way of solutions. So I'll ask you, government is not going to force Christianity, but you can't expect government to teach people Christianity. But you know who can spread Christianity?
Family.
You.
Yeah.
And me and everybody else. That's the only way Christianity is going to spread. It's going to spread through our word, through our fellowship, through our witness, through our testimony, especially through our testimony. So you expect government to spread Christian values? Forget about just Christianity and force people. How about just Christian? It's not going to happen in Washington. This is the city of harlots. People go there and prostitute themselves out, whore themselves out for the almighty buck. There's nothing good that's going to come out of Washington, but it can come out of you. I mean, if you expect Washington to do something, are you doing it in your own life? Are you sharing the Christian message with your neighbors, with your friends? Is your life a testimony and a witness? That's the way I look at it. I'm not waiting for Washington to spread Christian message. That's my responsibility, and I'll do it. And if everybody, hey, if 50 million, if 20, if 10 million, it's like Lot. It reminds me of the story of Lot. Lot said, God saved find me 100 people, and then he cuts it like 50, 20. Before he knows it, it's like, how about whatever? Give me 2. Find me 2 righteous people, and I won't destroy it. He couldn't even find 2 righteous people. But if we just had a handful of people that were doing their responsibility, exercising responsibility as Christians to spread the gospel and to evangelize their neighbors and their friends, we wouldn't need to worry about Washington. But the fact is, we neglect to do it in our own homes. How are we ever going to expect Washington to pick up the slack?
True.
You're absolutely right, Greg. It starts in the home.
Yes.
It does. It does.
Breaking news. Breaking news.
Yeah.
Chicago has a new mayor.
Yes, they do.
Brandon Johnson, as of 11 minutes ago. I hope he tries to tackle the crime.
All right.
He's the crazy radical that's backed by the teachers' unions, the far left progressive.
Oh, shit. Then they're screwed doubly.
Oh, yeah. He's the worst of the two.
Oh, yeah.
The other guy was backed by the cops, and this guy was backed by the teacher unions, I believe, right? The black guy one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Brandon Johnson.
All right, going into closing here. To conclude here, how are we going to stop the excessiveness of the single motherhood rate? How are we going to stop it from increasing? How are we going to really control this, narrative and really tone it down? But obviously at the same time, we do have a problem with, marriages, divorces that are an all-time high. A lot of people are not in relationships like they used to. The population is underpopulated, just like Elon Musk says. So we're dealing with a tricky hand here in so many different ways, so many different angles. I'm wondering, because I'm sick of seeing single mothers, walking around in strollers and.
Well, we encourage divorce, we discourage marriage, and we incentivize illegitimacy and children out of wedlock. So, as long as we're doing that, we're going to keep getting what we got. Yeah.
No, I hear you. I mean, what is? I mean, they're paying them though, right, Greg? So, I mean,
yeah, you take the money away. I mean, that's really the only thing it's going to do. You got to take the money away. You got to stop making it. Like anything in life, when your decision has a bad consequence, you tend to not do that. Yep. You may, at least over and over again. But as long as your bad decision has no consequences, there's nothing to stop you and to influence you away from making that bad decision again. And pregnancies and illegitimacy is the same. It's no longer. Go back to the 50s. You sent your daughter away if she got pregnant. It was shunned. I mean, it was condemned socially. It was taboo, and it was shameful. We've completely eliminated that. We celebrate it. We've got television programs just celebrating illegitimacy. I mean, in Hollywood, every one of these idiotic, asinine sitcoms, it's the girl sleeping with the guy and she has the baby. They're not married, but it doesn't matter. I mean, we so glamorized it and normalized it. And oh, by the way, incentivized it financially. So as long as we keep doing that, we're going to keep getting the problem, and it's going to get worse.
Yep.
What do you think,
What
Tony?
you're going to say, Greg? I think you're going to say they should embrace Christian values.
It goes back to what we all know. I mean, it starts at the home, right? When you're a parent,
Yeah.
you need to do a better job of raising your kids and teach them good values instead of sitting in front of a computer and have them look at what the internet says or not go to church, right? When I was a kid, my grandma forced me to go to church every Sunday, right? It was one of those things that, she said marriage is something that's, you strive to accomplish. I've been married 42 years to the same woman, right? I met her in high school, and we're still together. It's a partnership with people, right? You partner up with people and do the right thing and teach your kids to do the right thing. And what happens is parents want to be best friends with their kids anymore, right? They don't want to be parents. They don't want to, put them in a corner. They don't want to slap the crap out of a kid because they're afraid that, at least in California, if you touch your kid, you're going to jail. You know that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know about slapping the crap out of your kid, but you know what? Discipline, chastisement is a sign of love. Whom a father loves, he chastens. If he doesn't chasten his child, he's a bastard child. But the verse goes, marriage is honorable and the bed undefiled. But that is like archaic, antiquated. That's a dinosaur model. That's not the model of today. And so you reap what you sow.
Yeah.
Guys, I have to mention this stuff before we take off, and you guys are all going to want to hear this. Did you guys hear China invested $39 billion with Malaysia?
No, I did not.
No.
No, that was a big thing today. And guys, I want to read this. And this is crazy. The largest layoffs of 2023 so far: Amazon, 27,000 employees; Google, 12,000 employees; Meta, which is Facebook, 10,000 employees; Microsoft, 10,000 employees; Goldman Sachs, 3,200 employees; Coinbase, 25% of employees; Zoom, 15% of employees; Glassdoor, 15% of employees; Twilio, 15% of employees; Indeed, 15% of employees; Lending Club, 14% of employees; Vimeo, 11% of employees; DocuSign, 10% of employees; Salesforce, 10% of employees; Gemini, 10% of employees. That's crazy. At technology companies alone, we have seen 330,000 people laid off over the last year.
Yeah, I've been talking about these numbers even at the end of last year, all the big numbers. And I said the layoffs are coming, and people were talking about the strength of the job force. And I would comb through the numbers and very succinctly explain the household survey versus the establishment survey. The differences are our employment situation is not what they're telling you. And it's going to get much, much, much worse, especially in these tech businesses, because these technology companies, the reason why they're laying off is because these companies rely on cheap money. They're growth companies. That means they're constantly reinvesting whatever they're making and borrowing money and selling bonds and reinvesting hugely in debt. They rely on, and the essentiality is low interest rates, 0% interest rates. And now we've seen interest rates go to 5%. They can't survive on that. So they're having to cut and cut and cut. And all the companies are doing that. For 12 years, they've been living in the world of 0% interest rate realm. And those days are gone. And I believe they might come back as the Fed pivots. But the point is they can't survive like that. So they're cutting these people. So, yeah, big surprise. Big surprise. Anybody that understands the fundamentals of economics and financial markets saw this coming a long time ago.
And the numbers here say average interest rates, credit card, 24.5%, used cars, 14%, new cars, 9%. Total household debt, 16.5 trillion. Auto loans, 1.6 trillion. Credit card debt has passed $1 trillion. Student loans,
$1 trillion.
Student loans just hit a record 1.6 trillion. Interest on student loans has been suspended since 2020, but is set to resume this year. Fuck. I mean, Jesus, people are fucked, really.
And did you mention the bank, Silicon Valley Bank, Republic Bank? Throw that in the mix.
Well, that's just a beginning. They're just the first dominoes. Because all the banking industry is going to be in big trouble for a long time to come, a very long time to come. And we're just starting to see, wow, this is really an issue, these raising these interest rates. The Federal Reserve, I don't know that they're too stupid. They didn't anticipate it. But regardless, whether they're idiots or just didn't care, the fact is it's a problem.
Yeah.
And we just sent another $2.6 billion with a B in weapons to Ukraine today.
This whole weapon thing, I got no problem. Give them all the weapons. You buy them. Just like every other country in the damn world. You got Taiwan is still waiting for their weapons. You buy the weapons, we'll deliver them. That's how it works. This giveaway stuff, $100 billion, that's 1/10 of $1 trillion. And that doesn't include all the other countries. So it's just wrong. It's wrong on every single level. And it's abandoning the American people. And it's a threat to our own national security and certainly our economic security.
Yeah, right.
Tony, I'll go to you.
No, I'm with Greg. You want to give something to the Ukraine, have them go to Afghanistan to pick up our equipment that we left over there. They can use that.
Yeah. Matthew, you have any thoughts of anything we just talked about?
Yeah, as far as the Ukraine funding, you've got some minor demonstrations and protests in Europe, and you've got basically zero here to any opposition to what the Biden regime is doing, giving billions. The only thing that's happening over there is, Rory, your buddy Lazinski, whatever his name is going to be able to get another house or a yacht. Right. That's the only kind of exchange we're seeing. No accountability.
Nope.
True. There really isn't. There really isn't. And it's going to be interesting to see if China pulls this peace talk negotiation, off. If they can pull it off. They can really seal it.
That doesn't matter if they pull it off or not. They've already established themselves as the world leader because Joe Biden is incompetent. He is physically incapable, and they've already established themselves. And all I think, my only concern is, can we wait? Can we last until 2024? I mean, if we don't turn it around election-wise in 24, it's all done. But can we wait? Can we wait that long? That I don't know.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Crazy times. I mean, what do we think is going to happen the rest of the week? Do we have any big, bold predictions?
Possible if they get too up the Manhattan judge, a gag order. Somebody was talking about it might happen next week if Trump keeps talking. And I'm fine with Trump speaking his mind, but you might see a gag order as early as the end of the week.
My prediction is gold is going to hit an all-time high in U.S. dollars. It's already hit it in multiple currencies around the world, but I believe that by this week it will hit an all-time high in U.S. dollars.
What should we expect for the stock market?
Pain.
Prediction, pain.
Just like Mr. T.
Yeah.
And what about this whole oil thing? I mean, this is going to lead to a big disaster with all these different countries cutting oil production and the U.S.
How about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve? How Biden has effed everyone here and made us more vulnerable by not replenishing it?
That's part of the reason why I said, can we wait till 24? I don't know. I mean, things can happen. Things can implode very, very quickly. Look, I pray we make it to 24. But if someone were to ask me, I would not be betting on 24.
The Fed came out and the official says that the Federal Reserve will need to raise interest rates above 5% and hold them there for a while. Your thoughts, Greg?
Well, of course. Look, I've been saying for the longest time, real interest rates are still negative. And even if you believe the government's CPI numbers, it's 6%. That means interest rates at 5%, that's a negative 1% real rate. Nominal rates cannot be below the CPI, and you expect inflation to come down. It doesn't work that way. Now, there are other forces that are playing on inflation right now, but as far as using the interest rate to do it, a sub CPI interest rate is not going to do it. I mean, Paul Volcker, the CPI was at 13%, a more realistic number, the way they calculate it. But the interest rates went to over 20%. So 7% above. You have to have positive real rates of return. That means the interest rate has to be above the CPI. We're not there yet. It's going to take, and oh, by the way, inflation is never going to, not as far as my eyeball can see over the horizon. And the horizon is 16 miles. So we'll call it 16 years. If we ever see 2% inflation, it's going to be 16 years before we see it. If ever.
Yeah, I hear you. Greg, tell everybody where they can find you, where they can get involved.
Wednesday nights, Friday nights, Minutes with Merk, merging culture, politics, and faith right here on the Next Gen USA.
Sounds good. Matthew, final thoughts and tell everybody where they can find you.
The final thoughts, AOC's going after MTG. There's a big war on Twitter right now. But you can find the Matthew J. Show on thenextgenusa.com and, of course, on Twitter.
Tony.
You can find me at the Next Gen Live, just like you guys on Wednesday night, 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And on all social media, it's the same. Tony Rodriguez for the Republic.
All righty. Everybody, another episode in the books of the Next Gen Live. We will see you all tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern. Until then, I'm Rory Sauter. Much love. God bless.